Have you ever heard about the tragedy of Starfield? The unfinished.
Excuse me for being a little bit behind on the Starfield drama as of
That's
late,
fine.
as I did just have my daughter born. Been a
Oh.
little sick
Congratulations, that's big. Wow. Nice.
lately, but yeah, things have escalated quite a bit. Obviously, at the end of the month of August, I published my own review. I mostly enjoyed Starfield. I thought it was a pretty darn fun Bethesda game, dated in many capacities. I front-loaded a lot of my positive
Didn't watch this one, but I don't know if I trust people who call Starfield a fun game. It's a space exploration role-playing action game that some magically how has almost no action in the first 15 hours at the bare minimum, because most of the time you're just going from a planet with a colony on it to a planet with a colony on it with no action. The space exploration is non-existent, and when it exists, you don't wish it didn't. Which is the most ironic thing ever. And, well, the roleplay elements are just bad, okay? It seems like the writing in Bethesda has been pretty much like, okay, everyone who's gonna play this game is already sold on the idea, the concept of everything, and that's it. That's it. We don't have to explain anything. We don't have to sell anything. This is obviously. It's like every single NPC you talk to acts like you have been their, I don't know, best friend for 50 years, honestly. It's just the writing here is just atrocious in my honest opinion the more I play.
impression, so a lot of people thought that I was overwhelmingly in love with this game and put a lot of my negative thoughts towards the end. Probably should have done that a little bit differently, but there was a lot of issues I had with Starfield. The bugs were still there, facial animations are still a problem, and again, that dated feeling with these Bethesda games. It's becoming more abundantly clear that their engine it's just not up to par with what we're seeing from the rest of this industry. But regardless of all of that, Starfield has enjoyed a big launch. 6 million players. I think Fallout 4 back in 2015 had around 5 or 6. I think it shipped 12 million copies, but only...
Again, this 6 million players thing doesn't matter at all in my opinion. First of all, it's a Bethesda game. Everyone knows who Bethesda is. If you're a gamer, you probably know who Bethesda are. It's like Blizzard, you just know these things, okay? The moment you decide to become a gamer, this knowledge just automatically gets injected into your consciousness. So 6 million players for a new IP is not really a lot, you know? Not really a lot. So, also, they're saying players, which is kind of a deceptive term. This may be, you know, the people who just downloaded the game. The people who literally have just bought Game Pass maybe in the last month or something. I don't think this is actual players.
Only sold around 5 or 6 in that first week, so this is impressive for Starfield, especially because you don't have that PlayStation audience this time around. But if you go on SteamDB, you can actually see that Starfield peaked at around 330,000 players. That's pretty big,
nothing.
especially considering because I think most people are still playing on Game Pass rather than Steam.
Well, yeah. Also, the fact that it got released on Game Pass is bad. Because no sane person would ever decide to release a game as big as Starfield to something that costs $10 instead of your 70 or whatever. It's like they had already admitted defeat by releasing it on Game Pass because they were afraid that no one's gonna play it. And by the way, considering the Steam numbers are this atrociously bad, by the way, well, they did the right choice. Otherwise, not a lot of people would be playing this game, honestly. Because, you know, to have this little players in the game for such a big thing is... It's almost impossibly bad.
It just seems more financially... It makes more sense in that regard. Reviews for Starfield have been interesting. We saw a review bombing of sorts on Metacritic. It's kind of gone back and forth, and when I mean review bombing, it's just Xbox and PlayStation fans going after each other, some giving it a 1, some giving it a 10. That's why these user scores are meaningless to me in many regards.
I think Metacritic user scores are the only scores that matter. Metacritic actually shows what's really going on. Diablo 4. What is the score? 1 or 0.3 or whatever? Overwatch. Metacritic is the place where people actually go to show the real user score. Because the real user score is a 5 or 6 for most people. At the very, 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 very start, I said, well, it's probably a 6 or a 7. But then I understood that 7 at the best of days is almost an 8, and that's unacceptable. So yeah, Starfield is by no means anything ever above a 6. Unless it's your first game, I guess. In that case, it's probably like above a 6, but no.
Since everybody's just giving it a 10 or a 1, depending on what console I guess we cherish. But what I do find rather interesting is that on Metacritic, the overall score of Starfield is it's a lot lower than what it started off as. I think it was around like an 87, 88. It's gone down to an 83. I didn't consider Starfield I don't consider it in my top 3 games of the year. I said that immediately once the reviews dropped on my Twitter account. I think I obviously think this is Baldur's Gate 3. I think that game is just going to win it. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, without that disastrous launch, I really loved that experience, especially the journey of Cal Kestis. And Tears of the Kingdom probably going to be there. I still haven't been able to finish or play too much of it.
It's a Zelda game.
Yeah, Starfield, it's a Bethesda game. If you like these Bethesda experiences, you're going to like Starfield. If you're not in love with Bethesda games, I just don't.
I mean, you should just stop saying Bethesda game, because, that's like treating this game like it's some kind of autistic child, Oh, by autistic child standards, this game's really good because it's a Bethesda game. And Bethesda games are garbage in general. They just have a huge fan base because, a couple of lucky hits here with, Fallout, Oblivion, and all of those things. And after that, they're garbage. Yeah, well, that's just how life works.
Don't think that this is going to click for many people. And I think that's what we've seen online with a lot of the impressions that we've seen from other reviewers. We had Eurogamer publish their own review just the other day saying it's a game about exploration without exploration, liminal space. And I think they gave it a 6 out of 10. IGN gave it a 7 out of 10. This was controversial at first. A lot of people were very upset with IGN's impressions. And my overall opinion about this immediately was the 7 out of 10 is a fine score. It's not great. It's not bad, but I get it. I mean, you're looking at a blockbuster release. You're expecting something a little bit more impressive than a 7.
So, in this simulation, you can actually bug out, target the space station that's somewhere in the vicinity here and can auto-lock on it. And that means that you're not going to have the lock-on function for the rest of the battles, which makes this ridiculously hard. And the only way to reset this bug is by exiting the thing and starting all over again. So yeah, nice.
1 out of 10, especially out of one of the most highly anticipated Xbox games in years. But yeah, they gave it a 7 out of 10, saying Starfield has a lot of forces working against it, but eventually the allure of its expansive role-playing quests and respectable combat makes its gravitational pull difficult to resist.
Is not respectable.
I said this in my own review. I think Starfield improves on a lot of the mistakes that Bethesda made with Fallout 4. The issue is Fallout 4 came out 8 years ago. The industry has drastically changed since then.
I honestly just fully don't agree with that. The dialogues and so the big complaint people had about Fallout 4, which was also my complaint, was that there's yes, no, kinda yes, kinda no, aggressive yes, aggressive no, and that was pretty much all your dialogue options ever, right? Well, Starfield actually takes a step back, okay? The dialogue options literally don't mean shit anymore.
And I just don't know.
And the combat is like super verse. Like, no wonder in the first 10 hours, the game, like, pretty much steers you to go explore cities with zero combat, because the combat is just so unbelievably bad. When you need two full reloads to kill a basic level 6 enemy, because the gunplay is just so bad.
If it's enough. And I also don't know if Starfield does a good enough of a job to set itself apart from the Elder Scrolls and Fallout, which have distinct identities. And
It does.
I think a lot of people walk away from
does,
Starfield looking at it as Fallout in space, and I don't really think that's too wrong of an opinion to have about the game. But PC Gamer also giving it a 75. It's Bethesda's biggest RPG by far, but nowhere near its best. Metro, horrible website. Jesus, I hate looking at this. But yeah, another 6 out of 10. The final verdict, outdated, unambitious, and disjointed. Jim Sterling even gave a very scathing review of Starfield, giving it a 4 out of 10. Jim's known for these. He's known for these reviews. I remember when he gave Breath of the Wild, I think, a 7 out of 10. Nintendo fans were absolutely livid with it because it brought the Metacritic score down for the game. And we did see some people very upset with some of the opinions that Jim Sterling shared in his review, or their review. He said, to call Starfield the least broken Bethesda game is akin to calling any single turf the least embarrassing fascist. Then again, given how ZeniMax and Bethesda seems to treat certain employees, that comparison may hit too close to home. So some people thinking that this was a biased, political-driven review, make of that as you will. But what I do find what is most eye-catching is the actual Steam reviews for Starfield. Because right now, the game only has 77% positive reviews, and it's really interesting to me because it does seem to indicate that a lot of people are very dissatisfied with the game. And I think one of the biggest problems that Starfield has, it's in terms of the exploration, in which all of that handcrafted content is very far apart. And when you go for that procedural generation, that No Man's Sky-esque content, it just isn't that great. Again, I said this in my review. I do not care for any of that content. But when you stick to the actual handcrafted side content, especially some of those faction missions, that's where Starfield shines, I think at least. Now,
I hate it when people say that, by the way, because you need to understand one thing. There's literally just a handful of handcrafted locations. Everything else is just AI generated, okay? So, and considering this game only has let's be real, 10 maybe handcrafted locations and, places with handcrafted quests, the dialogue's just so bad. It's just insane. No, Starfield is the Bethesda game with the least work put into it, without question. And all the work that was put into it was in a couple of locations only, right? And well, that's pretty much it. And those locations aren't even that good. Like, every main city looks like, just a different shade of trash, honestly. It's stupid.
Oh, again, we did see some people comparing Starfield to Cyberpunk 2077.
True, good
pointing
times.
out that it looks dated.
Starfield versus Cyberpunk 2077.
Let's see. Yeah, we had people sharing some of the physics and stuff, which I just find it funny that Cyberpunk now is being compared to Starfield. Obviously, this isn't the day one version, so some people think it's an unfair comparison, but
I mean, if the difference is, Cyberpunk actually tries to fix the game. Starfield will never get a single game update. It got one game update, which is, one more than every other game they have ever released. Because Bethesda doesn't update their games. The only thing they will ever fix is in case there's a literal game-breaking bug that doesn't allow people to progress, or something like that, or there's a problem with the cash shop. Then yeah, they will fix it. But other than that, nah, Bethesda's not touching. Bethesda's not ever fixing anything. That's where the free modding comes in. That's where the modders should make the game good for you. Blame the modders.
it's just hilarious to me that Cyberpunk has come this far along in which we're now seeing these comparisons made. But yeah, this is just the nature of Bethesda that they have to change, especially character animations. Yeah, there is swimming and stuff in some of this, but yeah, it's quite clear that Bethesda's engine is barely hanging along right now. And yeah, again, day one, that didn't exist. This didn't exist in Cyberpunk, for what it is worth. Yeah, NPC reactions are very limited. I do think that in combat you do see some improved AI, but it's, again, I think a lot of people don't think it is enough. Anyway, you get the idea with that clip, but there have been some people going very out of their way against Starfield as much Alana Pierce, she works for Sony Santa Monica, worked on God of War Ragnarok. We had somebody saying that she should be fired for promoting Xbox games on a public platform like this. This is an example of somebody with a brain rot, because I think it's going to come as a surprise to some people, but yes, there are Xbox, there are PlayStation employees that enjoy, games. I know there was a bunch of Xbox.
I mean, shouldn't that be illegal? Isn't this pure tribalism?
Xbox developers, Phil Spencer himself probably enjoyed God of War Ragnarok last year. It goes both ways. I don't think that the console fanboyism, it really is just dedicated to this online space. Employees and such of these companies do not care about any of this stuff. But yeah, they call her extremely unprofessional and demonstrates a lack of loyalty and seriousness to PlayStation. Her employer, serious brain rot, seriously. We did see another example, David Jaffe. Obviously, he's known for his work on
this is the
Twisted
guy who
Metal,
didn't
God
play
of
the
War,
game.
back in the day. He was having a debate with a PlayStation fanboy about their feelings on Starfield, in which they were very much against the game, calling it boring and bad.
No, was the other way around?
What about the intro? What about the intro was horrendous?
It just was very lackluster. Like, if you compare it to Skyrim, immediately you're fighting a dragon, and then
No, you're
sent
not
out
actually
into the world
fighting
to
a
do
dragon.
anything you want. Like, literally.
But this is true, by the way. That's a good point, because this is how I summarize it. Like, Starfield's intro, Starfield's everything, is the worst we have had in any Bethesda game by far, okay? How does every Fallout game start? Well, you're in a vault, you get shot, you do your character creation, and, well, you get to loot a bunch of stuff in a house, and, you understand what's happening, and blah, blah, blah. And you get out, you're kind of nudged in a direction, this is where you go, have a fun time. You pick up a couple of quests, you learn the ropes, it, teaches you about combat, some basic things. It's really simple at the start, and then it kind of nudges you in a. Usually the games, by the way, Fallout usually does it like this. It nudges you in a direction. This is where you're supposed to go, and it's probably not too far away. But then it also usually gives you some kind of quest that's literally on the opposite side of the map, and it's just saying, hey, you can also go in this direction if you feel like, Starfield does none of that. It literally just takes... The starting sequence is roughly... The first 20 minutes of the game are you just waiting until some stupid NPCs that no one cares about, that you never encounter again, and they have super boring dialogue, finish talking. Then you fight pirates for 15 seconds roughly before they're all just gunned down. And then you have the most awkward dialogue sequence in the history of ever between... you and two other characters, where it just switches and it feels bad, and then you get to do stuff. But wait, you don't actually get to do stuff, because that's completely scripted. You actually go to another place, kill a bunch of kill a bunch of pirates again, which is not a big deal, by the way. There's 7 of them in total there. You're from a cave to the outdoors for 5 minutes. Then you're again in, it's not a cave, but it's a house. You're in a house that's pretty much a long corridor, at least it feels like that. And then you go to a main city, and then in that main city you're supposed to waste 4 hours walking around and doing stuff. It is the worst, most on rails, most unsatisfying Bethesda game early experience you can ever have. It is just uncomparably bad to anything.
Anything you want. Whereas this is a little bit, like I said, it's a little more shallow. It's a little bit almost more like Mass Effect, where it's more story oriented. It's pushing you in a certain direction.
Do you think that was the choices you made? What is her name? Lynn or Lim, the lady who's your boss? Do you think part of it is just the fact that she asked you to burn the bodies and shit, and it should be more of a choice versus she forces you to do it, and it's almost like it's scripted at that point?
That's some of it.
I mean, that didn't happen at all in the game, so I'm assuming you haven't played it yet, correct?
No.
I mean, it's true, but hey, I don't think you need to play Starfield to actually, understand that it's a shitty game. Let's be real.
I swear to God, I played it, but...
Like I said, some of the hate for Starfield is just people... It's console allegiance, I mean, this individual clearly did not play Starfield, as there's no burning bodies right at the beginning, and Jaffe set him up perfectly for that one, but that's what we've been seeing
Oh,
a
by
lot.
the way, I just noticed this yesterday, but when you press F for this thing, by the way, this game has like 15 trillion ways of you to fast travel. Turns out, you can press F on this thing, and then if you look at an objective, if it's uncovered, for example, this, it will show you press E to fast travel. Yeah, I just noticed that yesterday. I don't think anyone has actually noticed that you can use this thing to fast travel. Yeah, this game has 15 ways to fast travel because it just is so desperate for you to not actually explore anything because the exploration is that bad.
And some of it's just literally console war fanboyism, and it's so annoying to see any of this. But that's just the nature of this. That's why some of the reactions to these reviews, these 6 or 7 out of 10s, I genuinely am so tired of seeing Xbox fanboy accounts going after these reviews, saying that they're all biased against Xbox. I get there's some stuff that you can point out, but some of this, it's just Starfield didn't click for a lot of people. And it's not just game reviewers, but you're seeing that in the Steam reviews. A lot of people think it's dated. A lot of people think that Bethesda needs to improve in many regards, especially in terms of facial animation. That's one that
Dude, I remember some people try to defend that Starfield has an amazing engine, and they dropped like 10,000 bottles from a building with console commands, and the game didn't explode, or when some guy stuffed the cockpit with potatoes, and he opened the door and the game didn't explode, and that was supposed to be impressive, because in Skyrim 10 cheese wheels in a house destroys it or something like that, supposedly. I don't even fucking know. But it was the dumbest thing ever. By the way, I actually did a similar thing in Skyrim. In my house, I dropped, everything I got one by one. Man, that was cool. I like that. Never actually finished doing that because, dropping one by one items kind of doesn't work in Bethesda games if you have a lot of them. But man, it was fun.
I'm just tired of looking at these wooden faces in so many of their games. It's been going on for well over a decade now, and it does need to change, in my opinion, especially when you look at all the other developers and what they're doing with animation.
It's been going on
and again, this is another one. This is what I was talking
almost.
about. I respect everyone's opinion when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3, but in this case, when compared to Starfield, this person's trying to say that Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't hold a candle to Starfield, which is absurd. Yeah, look at it. Starfield completely owns and shits on Baldur's Gate 3, no cap, says the guy with the Starfield.
People have commented this, by the way, on my videos. I thought they're joking. I thought it was funny. But maybe that wasn't a joke comment.
Logo on his profile. I can't take these people seriously. But yes, there are bugs in Starfield. Again, I had some horrifying experiences, put it in my review. Some Assassin's Creed Unity-esque facial animation moments in which their faces just went completely black. It was really terrifying to look at. And one of them actually did happen during a pivotal moment in the game, a climactic moment in which all of the characters just lost all of their hair. It's Bethesda game, still has bugs, but I mean, it's nowhere near as bad as my experience with Fallout 4 and Skyrim, but it's quite clear that there is still... It's still a problem, and the bugginess that we're seeing with Bethesda games has been going on for far too long. And I do think a lot of that can be linked to their dated engine. Here we have another example of some bugs in Starfield.
Oh, there's nothing in there.
Yeah, the Crimson Fleet was supposed to pop out here for a fight.
That's the first fight! That's the literally first fight, unless you ignore the fact that you're probably like trying to attack the NPCs with the laser cutter while the stupid minor NPCs are having a stupid dialogue about stupid things. Nice. 10 out of 10.
There they are.
Oh. Oh.
Yep, that's a Bethesda game for you. But there are some more serious issues.
Same. Well, it's not the same thing, but try exiting and entering a ship while crouched. A ship that has not the hatch door, but it's the door. Do that. chances are you're going to end up under the ship.
Especially on PC, which is why I do think some of those Steam reviews are more negative. We had this major programming faults discovered in Starfield's code by this dev.
Oh, wow,
Performance
really?
issues are not the result of non-upgraded hardware, which something that Todd said. We'll talk about that in a second. But basically, Starfield allocates its memory incorrectly where it doesn't align to the CPU page size. If your GPU drivers are not robust against this, your game is going to crash at random times. Starfield abuses a DX12 feature called Execute Indirect. One of the things that this wants is some hints from the game so the graphics driver knows what to expect. Since Starfield sends in bogus hints, the graphics drivers get caught off guard trying to process the data and end up making bubbles in the command queue. These bubbles mean the GPU has to stop what it's doing, double check the assumptions it made.
Yeah, I literally don't know what that is, but honestly, I'm not too interested in that. I feel that everything else is gonna be techno-babble here, and I'm not the guy for that. Anyway, this was Quizzer Citizen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to see the rest of the video, links down below. So, you're free to do that. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.